Hello again, everybody. I wanted to talk about my favorite thing in the world, which is humility. I wrote my own definition for it earlier because I don't like the definitions there are on like dictionary.com and Wikipedia, and I was like, this isn't really what I mean, so I'm not going to use those definitions. I wrote my own. And this is my own definition of humility, and this is building off of the last video that I made because in order to separate that higher self from the ego and the present self, there has to be an ability to really separate those things from one another. And the ability and the muscle the name I give it is humility. That's what it feels like to me. So let me explain what I mean. The basic, like one sentence, if I had to use one sentence, I would say that humility is to respect and care about the truth more than your own ego. And I'm going to throw this out there at the beginning. So I am a spiritual and a religious person, and I talk about everything. I have a belief that kind of is the framework for everything I believe in, the way that I've lived my life, the way I've rewired my brain, the way I've built everything I've built and reclaimed my life and my physical health and my mental well-being, and all of it is based on this belief that the spiritual is more real than the physical, and that everything manifests from the spiritual into the physical. That is a basic belief I have that kind of undergirds everything, and it's only ever given me fantastic results in my life as a whole. So when I say to respect and care more about the truth than your ego, I mean, to say that another way, the only thing we deserve is heaven. So that means we don't deserve, think about what heaven would be like. I mean, in a place that is ideal for the human person, we would have joy, we would have peace, we would have contentment and abundance beyond our wildest dreams. So there would be, the thing too though is that that's a choice. You can choose that, and that's what humility is choosing that. That means, so we choose what is good and what feels good to our souls, regardless of whether it feels good to our egos. And when it comes to brain rewiring or life in general, this is a very, very helpful skill to have. The way that So what we don't deserve then, if we only deserve heaven, what we don't deserve is to complain, is to have attachments to things that are not good for our souls. They're basically to things that are not God. Basically, attachment to anything that's not God isn't good for us. It's not good for us in any way. And so humility means choosing to be more attached to what is actually good for you and what is actually good versus your habits and your, the way you really like your coffee every day, or the way that you really like your this or that, whatever it is, you have a pattern, even your thoughts. And this is when it comes to like brain rewiring, we have all these habitual thought patterns that are, the brain likes them and it's kind of addicted to it's familiar. And in order to rewire our brain and reclaim our health, we have to, and even just for people who aren't rewiring their brains, but like have bad habits, like I have a bad habit of gossiping about people or judging people. It's just a pattern in your brain that's really familiar. And so it feels right and it feels good when you go into it because you're used to it. But if you recognize, like if you step into Curious Observer and say, I have a pattern of complaining about whatever, anything. It could be anything specific, or it could be just complaining in general. Or I have the habit of fortune telling negative things, or I have the habit of anything negative, pretty much, eating sugar when I know I shouldn't be, or just watching too much YouTube, or ironically, Netflix, or any bad habit you have. It feels good in the moment you do it, but then you always end up feeling yucky afterwards. And in order to, this is where accessing your higher self, kind of that higher self, ego, present self, accessing your higher self says, okay, there's another path available. I believe that there's a way to live my life that doesn't include these habits. So I have to go out on faith and have the humility, because what happens when you step into that space and you decide to go on a different path is you enter into something that feels very unfamiliar in your brain. And that feeling is really important to get familiar with, because that's where all the progress in life lies, is when you hit a point where you're like, okay, this is new territory. I don't recognize this territory. And sometimes what it feels like is I don't recognize myself right now because this isn't how I normally behave. But that's the point, is to not behave the way we normally behave. So that means you're on the right path. But it takes a lot of humility, because you have to unknow who you used to be. You have to forget who you used to be and stop having those thoughts and stop having those behaviors and stop being that person if you want to become someone else. And that means you have to, well, and this is the Christian term, is to die to self. And that's really what I perceive it to be, is like, let all of that die. I don't want it anyways. Like, I want the truth. I want goodness. I want good things in my life, and I choose to have them for myself. And I have the humility to stay in the dark, to stay in the, I don't know why I'm doing this, and I don't know why I'm having, like, why am I even doing this thing right now? There's a lot of that in brain rewiring in particular, but in life in general, there's, you know, a time where you have to just pull back into yourself and stay in the silence and the dark that exists within you. And that requires separating from everything else. And that is, it takes a lot of humility, because you have no claim on everything that you thought was you. Everything, like all the habits and all the stuff that made up who you thought you were isn't really you. And it takes a lot of humility to say, okay, that's not me. This quiet space, this peace, this is me. And it can take a bit of willpower and practice to get used to that. But in order to love oneself, and in order to grow in life, in order to move forward in life, becoming familiar with the unfamiliar is really important. And in my opinion, that's where humility comes in, because it respects that there's so much more to you than what you have been up to this point. And at the same time, well, actually, that's pretty much it. It respects that there's a lot more to you than there was up to this point, because that wasn't you. That wasn't a permanent version of you. That's not who you really are. You are your higher self. And so all the other stuff in the ego is changeable. It's interchangeable. You can be anything you want to be. You can pick a pattern. You can pick a behavior. You can pick any trait you want to have and make it a part of yourself, literally. But that requires that you realize that your present self and your ego aren't you. Not really. You are this infinite entity with infinite potential. And when you start defining yourself that way, that changes things a lot. And it's a matter of letting go of all of the little habits and behaviors and thought patterns and emotional patterns and things that felt like they were us, in order to actually get home to who we are and to live in our potential and to live a full life and to be happy and joyful and productive and everything that is we want to be, to feel well and to enjoy our lives and create the things we want to create and have the relationships we want to have. All of that requires that we step into that unknown of our higher self that for some of us we may have never even encountered before. So I have absolutely fallen in love with humility, because I've discovered that it really is the only truth that there is. Whenever I step into humility, into a space of, you know, I choose to not know what other people think, or to choose to not care and not even want to know what other people think of me. I choose to not want to know what I'm leaving behind, because the point is to leave it behind. I don't care what's back there. I don't want it anymore. I want what's ahead of me. And to become someone who chases humility down, because it's so powerful and it's so potent and it's so joyful. Because in the space of humility, when we realize I'm not God, I'm not in charge of my life, I don't get to decide that I was born or when I will die or exactly how my life plays out, but I get to decide how I will respond to it. And God, or the divine, however you want to phrase that, is always present in wanting to give us abundance. Always. He's always pouring that forth, but it's up to us to kind of let go of all the thinking and the emotions that would get in the way of that. And that's, again, where humility comes in. And when you do that, when you let go of your emotions and you let go of your, someone said something to you that was rude or in a rude tone of voice, humility would be responding calmly, because it doesn't matter. Like, if your worth and your value are in who you really are and the fact that you are infinitely loved and infinitely enough, who cares if somebody treats you a different way? Like, that just kind of bounces back to them. It doesn't have any impact on who you are or your value at all. And that place is freedom, and that place is peace, and it is calm, and it is abundance, and it is more than I could have ever imagined I could have received from something that most of our world doesn't have a very positive association with, which is humility. I have absolutely fallen in love with humility because it's given me the ability to be all that I want to be and to enjoy it without it distracting me from my purpose in life. Like, I've been able to pursue, for the first time ever, wearing clothes I want to wear, wearing jewelry I want to wear, being, pursuing a body that I feel comfortable in because I'm doing it because I want to enjoy it and because it's who I am and not because I want attention or I want to prove anything to anyone, because I know I don't have anything to prove. This is just who I am. I like wearing pretty clothes. I like wearing, this is my style, and I wear it at home while I'm with my kids and whatnot because it's who I am. But in the past, I wanted to do that, but I could never really enjoy it because I was always concerned with what people thought of me, Even doing something like this, like making a video, in the past I would have been too concerned about what people thought of me or if people would like it or whatever. And I don't really care now because I'm doing this because this is my passion. I love it. I know a lot about this stuff and I get to enjoy it. And that's it. That's the point of life, is just to enjoy it. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of humility. And one of the biggest things too that I really want to impress upon anyone listening to this is that this direction of humility, this direction of openness and silence and darkness and space that exists within us, that unlimited potential within the human person is truly infinite. Like, there is no end. That part of us is connected to God. There is nothing we cannot do if we want it enough. And if we're willing to let go of anything that would get in the way and believe it's possible, we can really do anything. But the only way we do that is doing it for the sake of the doing it, because we want it. We want the experience of it, and then we can have it. If we want it for any other reason, that's our ego, and we're not going to get there that way because we're going to be so wrapped up with its effect on other people and that attachment to ego. That's what holds us back in life. That's like a ball and chain. You just can't. You have to take my word for that. You just can't go anywhere with that thing around your ankle. You can't. It just doesn't work. But just to realize that it really does not matter where you start. It doesn't matter where you're at right now at all. You have infinite potential. Like, I've been rewiring my brain for almost 2.5 years, and I'm pretty healthy now, but I've realized, like, this growth process that I've just begun will go on for the rest of my life. Maybe not necessarily using these tools, but I've realized that this is all I care about, is to keep moving forward, and humility is the path. Yeah. So that's humility. I think it's really important and really awesome and really enjoyable, and I'm curious, again, comments, discussion. Have you ever heard of anything like this before? Does it sound familiar in any way? Do you want to challenge me? Do you agree with me? Anything.